All right. You came a little late, which is totally cool. Recap some of the new rule changes that we've had for the 2018-2017 season. One that I think is actually kind of funny is traveling. I've been over this already with you guys, so we'll just go over it again. The former rule, as you know, anything that's more than 2 steps, duh, obvious. But when there's a scramble on the floor, that's where it gets really kind of a judgment call for a lot of referees. So what the rules are now changed to is if a player falls on the ground, even if he's on his knees, he's still okay. He can still dribble and come up as long as he's dribbling. But if he takes 2 steps, of course, and has the ball, that's travel. But if he, and the analogy that they gave, which is really kind of silly in my opinion, the player can literally slide, not walk, but slide the length of the floor. It's not considered traveling. The minute he barrel rolls or goes shoulder to shoulder on the floor, that's a travel, which is stupid to me because that's a heck of a lot longer than just a barrel roll. But that's the rule. So that's where we're going.
But they can't scoot, right? You can't use your feet to scoot.
You know, I want to deflect to the basis of all the rules. If the player is trying to gain a strategic advantage, then it's a violation. So if you feel it's a strategic advantage, and you don't personally, with your judgment realm, don't like that, call it. But if he's like another player's trying to, then of course he's okay there. What else? A new one that's, Jesse told me, I guess the NBA's been doing with for a while. If a player, either inside or outside the 3-point line, hopefully they don't shoot this from half court and take advantage of the system, of the technicality. But if the player shoots a ball and airballs it, and if you as a referee deem it as an authentic attempt, he can actually get his own rebound if it's an air ball and still be in play just fine. Whereas normally that'd be a travel or a carry or whatever you want to call it then.
So that used to be a travel in high school?
Yeah. Now they changed that rule. Again, it's a judgment call on the ref's part. If some guy is half court just throwing it up and running underneath it, yeah, that'd probably be a violation. I would recommend calling that, but it's your call. You don't want to gain a strategic advantage. That's our little technicality. Let's see. Now, there haven't been a lot of changes as to like the hand motions, arm gestures. Do you guys know what the difference is between a foul or a violation and a foul? Okay. If you call a foul, your fist goes up. If the ball goes out of bounds, it's a flat hand, that's just a violation. 2 different things.
Usually just a dead ball.
Yeah. Dead ball is just a violation, meaning it goes out of bounds, or yeah. Or if someone airballs it from half court, not half court, but from a free throw, or there's someone steps in the lane during a free throw too early, that's just a violation, it's not a foul. So, tweet, that kind of thing. Sooner the better, of course. And there really is no, I mean there is, but there isn't such thing as a late call. Because honestly, it's a 50-50 shot. You're gonna piss off half the people, other people are gonna be like, I'm glad you called that. So you're in a no-win situation there really. And I can't remember his name. His name is Steve Yurgis, and he's like the guy over Salt Lake. He was telling us that if you guys walk away from a game and both sides hate you, you did a good job. So keep that in mind. Let's see. So we have that. When it comes to like shooting, when there's a foul happens on a shot, or even it's just a reach-in foul, the standard is just a straight arm hit up here. If you get up too high, not too high is what you want to do, right around the elbow area. Down here is more personal foul. Really kind of strange how that foot makes a difference. Higher up here just means a normal foul shot, whereas a personal foul can be 2 shots and the ball. So be mindful how you do that. And I've been trained by 2 different guys who say they don't want blocking to be like hips on the side anymore. They want it flat hands on the hips. Weird, I know. I think it's up to your personal preference.
I was just wondering why.
About the hands and the hips? I don't know. I can't get anyone to give me a straight reason why. I grew up with the fists. That's how I always seen it, especially in the NBA. But the guy that Steve Yurgis, he's like 70 some odd years old and is like by the book, black and white. I did that call once and he says, no, the new call is this. I'm like, nobody cares. They know what the call is. They know what the foul is. It's blocking. Charging is really kind of hard because you don't really have that convenient little arch like the NBA and some college do. I would say 70% of the time it's probably going to be a blocking foul, not a charge, unless you absolutely just know. Are most of the games going to be played in here? Or just all throughout the stake?
I'm hoping there's a slight chance we might move them, but it doesn't look possible.
Okay. Depending where the rim is. I would say anything inside that yellow orange line would definitely be a blocking foul. But I don't know, that's just a judgment call again. What else could I?
Explain that then if someone was like standing under the hoop but then gets run over.
Sorry?
I think for us to make it simple, we would just use the bottom part of the key.
Yeah. I mean, it all happens so fast. So, and that's one thing that I've had to train myself over the last year, is I was what they call a ball watcher. Wherever the ball goes, that's where your guy's supposed to be. Not necessarily. Because when there's two of you, hopefully the other guys will know this, I like to stand about right here, but when the ball comes to the action here, you get right up in that key. But this is usually a dividing line. Stay on this side if you're the lead or the lead ref. The trail is what the other guy's supposed to be. They tell us to kind of hover around this area here, be inside the half court line, but when the ball comes down here on the what's called baseline, they want us literally like right freaking there. To me, a lot of action can still happen if they want to whip that ball out, so give yourself as much space as you feel comfortable. Steve Yurgis, again, just is really obsessive about that. He gave me 2.5 pages of notes of things I need to correct, and that was one of them. I'm like, I'm 20 feet away from the play. I'll be okay. Anyway, I don't like this guy, as you can tell.
Do you normally run up in two-person teams or three?
I normally do 2. Varsity is usually whether you do 3, and you need to have 2 years worth in order to do varsity. Plus pay some ridiculous fee and go to some summer school. Not worth it to me, really, right now. Anyway, I do have that aspiration someday.
So how did you stop yourself from being a ball watcher?
Very good question. You brought me back to my original point. So when you're down here, your job as the lead official is to watch the bodies. Kind of peripherally watch the ball, because if the ball does come over here, this is your spot. If they shoot a 3, that's your call. This lead ref or this trail ref cannot see it accurately enough. And so to prevent being a ball watcher, just remember that your job is to watch like the elbows, the 2 hard box outs, things of that nature, or anything that could possibly happen in here.
So ideally, we usually have 3 refs on the court.
Should you, or?
Ideally, we usually do.
Yeah.
We have in the past, at least.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, you can.
what we have. Sometimes we'll have 2, but most of the time we have 3. So what we've tried to tell them is that the 2 back refs are watching
Yeah.
the 3-point line, so that the lead ref or the baseline ref can just focus on what's going on in the key.
I would do a triangle configuration with that. I've seen that in the NBA a lot. One is more higher. This one's more like towards the middle part of that out of bounds line. Of course, this guy, that way he can be here. Ideally, that's where I would want to be. But yeah, it's a bad habit to watch the ball too much. If the ball is in the key, then of course it's your area. You get to call that or make those calls. But you got to change your mind from a fan which watches the ball. All we do as fans is watch the ball. Who's going to score? That kind of a thing. Whereas officials, our perspective changes just because of our position. So does that help out? Clarification on that? Now, I kind of gone over all of the rules changes and basics, know the difference between the foul and a violation. What kind of questions would you guys have? What kind of things have you struggled with, wanting clarity on?
When do you blow the whistle when you put the ball back in play?
Where do you do it? When you put the...
Blow it when you give the ball back over, like hand it over, blow it, then hand it over to the guy. When in that do you actually blow the whistle?
I will literally point to where I want the player to be. You always want to be on the outside of the player. You want to try and keep them inside the little box and you be outside of that circle. Same thing with the lead official over there. So what we're actually told to do is to bounce it to him. You can hand it to him if you want, but you always see NBA referees bounce it to the players. Does that answer your question?
No, it was when do you blow the whistle to signal the ball's coming back in play?
When do you blow the whistle to, sorry?
To signal the ball coming back in play.
So do you blow it before you bounce it to the guy?
Oh yeah, blow it, then bounce it, correct. Yeah, I see what you're saying now. Blow it, then bounce it. I just wanted to let everybody know, okay, ball's coming in play, I'm in control.
And do you start count when he touches the ball?
Yes, right when he has the ball in his possession. And don't do like you're timing it. Do a little slower, maybe 1.3 seconds-ish. So like 1, 2, instead of 1,
If he
2.
happens to bobble that bounce pass, you start once he has possession?
Oh, once
Or
he
do you
touches
make
it?
him give it back, or what?
Yeah, once he touches it, the clock starts. Doesn't matter if he bobbles it, if he mishandles it, that's his fault, not yours. Good question. Another thing too, do you guys know when they can run the baseline and when they cannot?
Yeah, so made baskets, they can.
Yeah,
And then what do you, so let's say only made basket?
It only made basket.
Only made basket.
Right?
so if the opponent makes it, they can start here after the referee hands it to them. They can do one of these. They can't really run, but they can do like a sidestep, pass it in that way. But if it's a dead ball after like a made free throw, they have to, actually that's a made shot, isn't it? So it'd be like a out of bounds or a traveling violation. That way they cannot run the baseline.
But like same thing as a pivot, so they have to keep the pivot down, or can they kind of shuffle their feet a little bit when they're in bounds?
I would say that's your call. I mean, if they move their pivot, like they can take 2 steps, I'd be okay with that as an official because the ball's dead. They can't score with it. Actually, a new technicality I learned the other day watching an NBA game. There's no such thing as goaltending when they're throwing the ball out of bounds. Do you guys hear about this rule?
So if they, from the side, for example, lob a pass to the rim, it's going towards the rim, but you can jump up and snap
Yeah,
it.
because you cannot make it doesn't count as a made shot if they somehow make it from out of bounds.
You probably don't have that problem.
Yeah, no one's that good. We don't have any Steph Currys necessarily, but yeah. I actually saw that. It was who was it? I think it was the Memphis Grizzlies, something like that. They threw the ball in, and it was an obvious goaltend. Like the ball and the hands were right above the rim. And the referees allowed it because you can't score from out of bounds. I didn't realize that technicality until, so.
Let's talk about places where we give them the ball to inbound. So let's say that, let's go over the different scenarios. Obviously, free throws, made free throws, down, timeouts. How about timeouts that are on their side of the floor?
Timeouts on their side of the floor. A lot of it is where they call timeout. Usually the benches, the teams are going to be on this side, right? So if they call it closer to their bench, you want to just kind of guesstimate where they call timeout, because if they call timeout from the baseline, you have to enter it in from the baseline, obviously. And same sort of thing here. If the ball goes out of bounds anywhere along the baseline, that's usually where you want to inbound the ball for the other team. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, let's go over more of them though. Like how about fouls that are at the top of the key?
Top of the key. Usually the lead official doesn't handle those. That'll be the trail. Because anything that's about from the free throw line in is the lead official.
So where will the trail official happen in that?
If I'm over here, he'll be over here, and he can have it thrown in anywhere he likes over there, really.
Okay, so it comes up to the ref that makes
The preference of the ref.
If the ball goes out of bounds in the other corner.
In the corner, then actually what I'll do there is I will still stay on my baseline, trails over here. I will stay right here and just inbound to point to the player where he needs to be.
Okay, so if the ball goes out, maybe on the baseline, about where the three-point line is, maybe not.
Yeah, just right there. Good questions, very good questions.
The rule, I guess, changed on timeouts in the backcourt. Doesn't advance the ball to the front court anymore.
They have to be at the half court in order for it to be inbounded past half court.
Right. So if they call a timeout in the
Yeah.
backcourt, it's inbounded in the backcourt.
Yeah, the coaches may say, hey, can we, no.
Okay.
They should have informed their players better. Great questions.
Is there's still 5-second count
From,
guarding, 5-second guard.
closely guarded situation, yes, yeah.
And it's 5 seconds, not dribbling, then it restarts, they start dribbling.
Mm-hmm.
Then restarts once they stop.
Yeah, once they clear, like it's no longer a violation, you may want to do one of these signs, just let people know that you were aware of it. Crowds love that, especially those that know the rules. But if they don't, they just wonder why you're doing
How
that.
far away do you usually give before you start counting? Like the defender, how far away do you let the
When do you
defender
count that
be?
they're actually closely guarded?
If you have the ball and I'm gonna be like this, maybe it's within about, let's say anything within 3 feet, 2 feet.
So I've heard within reach, because the defender
Yeah.
can reach it.
So about 2 feet?
Yeah, so if they have their hands like this, if they're not touching it, but they have them there, I would call that a closely guarded, and you can start your count then. Good question.
Okay. I think I already know the answer to this one, but I want to ask one more. If a shot goes off the rim into the backcourt, and the player or the team that shoots it touches it in the backcourt, and no one else has touched it, does that count as an over and back? Or does the rim basically reset position and it's okay for a team to rebound their shot off the rim in the backcourt?
That's a great question, and the answer to that is the minute that releases from the hand of the shooter, it is literally considered a neutral ball. So even though the offensive team shoots it, if he makes it, of course, the points count, but the minute that ball is released, it's a neutral shot or neutral possession.
Basically resets possession.
Yeah, so
They can get it.
they can rebound it. It's unlikely, but they can rebound it, and it's not a violation.
What about on a shot, misses, and somebody tips it back? It's still not a possession, right? Somebody on the offense with the
Yeah, let's
tip it all the way
say,
back.
same scenario, but it
Player.
comes off of the rim and then a rebounder here tips it out to somebody who was supposed to catch it but was in the wrong spot and it goes in the backcourt. Is that then considered a backcourt violation?
That's a judgment call on the referee's part. If my vision is sharp enough that I see that it was the offensive player that tipped it back there, I would probably call that an over and back. That probably would be a violation.
Like, if it's a controlled tap, I would call it. If it's
Yeah.
just a Karen.
Like if he's meaning to try to get it back,
I'd probably call it if it was.
Yeah.
but if there's just tipping going on, okay.
And of course, you're going to piss off the offensive team, but whatever.
Let's talk lane violation details on free throws, especially like players not lined up on the key.
Okay. Everyone has to stay behind the three-point line if they're not on the sides, obviously. And they cannot enter the three-point circle until it hits the rim.
Just like the free throw shooter.
Yeah.
And there's no restrictions around how far they can be around the three-point line? If they wanted to line up over here, they could?
They shouldn't be, like in this case, I would say no players should be across
Outside
that
of
green
the
line.
green line?
I heard free throw line extended. They can't be, no player can be in front of the free throw line.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So like not closer than free throw line?
Because the intent is to distract the shooter, usually in that case.
Okay, we'll go by green line then.
Okay.
Free throw line extended. That's actually textbook terminology. Good job.
And for high school, it's still on the release, they didn't change that, right?
No, it's still on release, yeah.
Still on the release.
Oh, and one other thing too, and this is just if you want to be super technical, whichever referee blows the call, like for instance, if it's my call, someone blows the whistle, if I blow the whistle down here on a foul shot, then I take my fist, go to the booth, you report the color first, then the number, and then I stay there. The lead or the trail official then is the guy that does the rebounding underneath. Now, because you want to stay on opposite sides, if the booth is going to be over here to where you report the numbers to, the trail official, which is now the lead official, stands on the opposite side. Now, this is again, Steve Yergas. This is actually one of the things I do like that he kind of coached me on. When you're handing the free throw to the player, stand here and control the situation. You are in charge. Don't let these players make sure the colors are obviously every other, and direct traffic. You are the boss. If they don't, then they're not going to take you seriously as an official. So when you do that, just say one shot, bounce the ball, get out of the way. Like, don't hang underneath here. You want to be out of the way. I usually just leave this as my guideline. Just stand over here.
Don't you want to be, which side are you watching when you're over there for lane violation?
For the elevations, only the one across from you here.
Walking out, the other one's watching this one.
Yeah, the trail official would be watching this side. It kind of actually makes sense because as a referee, you likely can't see the feet beyond this person right here. Too many bodies in the way, which makes sense. Good question.
So the lead official is going to be down here under the basket. That person then is going to be responsible for the activity around the rim. But let's say that people know you can't see something. Like, when is it rude for the trail official to make a call on a play that happened under the rim?
That is, I've had that happen both to me and I've done it to another trail official. The coaching that I've got on that is that if it's pretty blatantly obvious and the lead misses it, trail should call it. But if he doesn't, then you can always look at the crowd and say, hey, it wasn't my call, it's his fault, we'll blame it on him. And you can do that. It keeps the referees responsible, which is good. So good question. That answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Could you describe more the responsibilities for what you should be looking for? And because we run with 3 refs, could you describe all 3 positions and the responsibilities?
I'm less familiar with all three. I can take some educated guesses. I'm usually just working with two. So, I mean, your guess would be as good as mine at this point, really. But just every time there's a foul shot, change of possession, violation, that's when you should rotate just one spot. And then, yeah. And don't be afraid to communicate. Don't be afraid to pause the game if you're unclear on something, or if a referee makes a questionable call, just say, what did you see there? You guys need to know what each other are doing. You need to communicate. And all that just builds credibility with you and not only your other officials, but also the crowd too.
So with three officials, when I've been officiating, and there's baseline official, say I'm the trail official on this side, and then that official usually just stays on that. He doesn't come down farther than the 3-point line.
Okay?
Mainly because of the scoring table right there. So we can give them more view. But usually when I'm over here, I'm checking, I'm watching more this side. That one's watching more that side, and then the baseline official has basically the key. But there's some times where I'm still watching the key because I have a better view. Is that okay? If I can see better, like out of bounds, someone hits it out of bounds with the back judge didn't, or the back judge didn't see it.
Yeah, especially if I make the wrong call and you clearly see it was off of the player that I gave it the wrong possession to, then you could absolutely call me over and say, hey, I saw this, and I will likely take your word for it, because if I'm at all honest with myself, which I usually tend to be, I'll say, well, he had a better view. Or I'll tell the players I was out of position. And you want to be honest with the players, because if you start making up crap, nobody likes that. So that's a good point. Very good point.
I think for us, we can't really assume that we're going to have three good refs or referees, like one ref, good ref in every position.
Agreed.
So we might have some weaker refs, and I think it's fine to make calls that aren't really technically yours.
Yeah.
And I agree, and I also, what I want to help try to coach them or try to show them is that kind of in this area, just pay attention to right here. Don't worry about what's going on over there.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of get away with what you're saying, being a ball watcher, trying to help them. Don't pay attention to what's going on over there. Keep your eyes over here, where it's kind of like you're playing zone.
Yeah. It's like when you're playing any sport, you got to trust your teammates that they'll make the right call, do the right thing. And I'll just say, you guys here, obviously, because you're here, don't be afraid to blow the whistle. You'll piss people off no matter what, if you miss it or don't. But you're better off making it because people can take you more seriously.
Do you ever, like in between quarters or halves, go over and talk to the teams and ask them, like, any feedback of how you're doing, or?
Players, no. Coaches, yes.
Okay.
Players are always going to be biased. They always say, oh yeah, well 12's always, and they may know 12 from like third grade, and they just want to, get under his skin or whatever. I would never go to the players.
With our volunteers, would you encourage that? Because we don't really have coaches. We have captains that are going to be playing anyway.
Captains, yeah. If
I'd say
the,
no. I'd say they should come talk to one of us.
So come talk to the table.
yeah,
For feedback.
voice their opinions at the table.
Yep.
Because I just have a hard time taking any sort of advice or whatever from the players.
I don't think the players are going to, I don't think I'd even be level-headed if I was one of the players.
I agree.
I feel like I've never not welcomed that feedback though in this situation. I feel like it's been
We're
fine.
pretty good here.
I take it like a grain of salt, if anything. Like because if they do volunteer, which they will, players will volunteer feedback, they always do. Grain of salt, don't take it personally. They're not attacking you personally, obviously. They're just attacking what they want to see out of the game, whatever encourages their outcome.
So let's talk about, unless we're not done there,
No.
time violations.
Okay.
All the times you have to count. So on an inbounds pass, obviously, you have to count.
Yeah.
Is there defensive 3 seconds in high school?
No, not defensive.
Okay, so offensive, in the key. So, okay, let's go over them all just for the recording. Inbounds, 5 seconds, or 5 counts, because
Yeah.
you said 1.5 seconds really
Two.
is a count.
3.
3 seconds in the key, 10 seconds in the backcourt, or 10 counts in the backcourt. What other ones are there?
Now, here's another thing too, and just because you don't want to piss off players and coaches, when you do make your counts, even when you get to 5, make it like 5.2, 5.3. Give him a little bit of a shot. Because if the guy's just standing there, he doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't care. So yeah, blow that violation. Backcourt's a lot of the same. If you get to like 10.5, then definitely blow that whistle. But if it's like championship situation or game end, double overtime, be more stricter on those counts just because you want to speed the game along. Your game manager is really what our title is. Referees, yes, but we're game managers. We're supposed to make things go smoothly. Hopefully that addressed some of your question.
No, let's get to all of them though. So that was 3 of them. Closely guarded, that one's how many?
That one's 5.
5 seconds?
I'd be very strict on that one though.
Okay. And then what other ones are there that we need to count?
Out of bounds. Yeah, free throw should be
We only have 10
15
to
seconds.
shoot?
I mean, I've never needed to count, but
Okay.
yeah,
That's a good one. I didn't even know that one existed.
yeah, 15
So
seconds.
is it 15 then?
Yeah.
15 counts? Okay, what other ones?
Timeouts, are they a minute and a half?
We'll clock those on the.
Yeah, we usually do about a minute.
Okay. That's something that the tables should monitor, not so much the officials. Now here's a fun scenario too. I'll keep thinking of some more time scenarios.
Okay.
But what would you guys think is the best practice if crowd or even players say, hey, we only got 2 points for a 3-point shot, or the table didn't add up the points right? What's the policy there? Do you guys?
We have the scorekeeper and then we have the bookkeeper and we have them fight it out to see who was right.
Yeah. This is the one thing you guys will love because it bails out the officials every time. We're not supposed to keep score. We just manage the game. We default to that book. Whatever the book says is law, period. It bails us out all the time because, again, we're not supposed to keep track of that. We just mark if it's a 3 or not. That's all. So book is law, straight up. Fouls, points, everything. Let's see what other time scenarios are there.
Explain 3 seconds and what is and what isn't a violation.
Okay.
To clear.
Getting out of the key.
Yeah, we had someone get real upset because they said this was a clear.
That is not a clear.
That is.
They step out, yeah. Well, that's the thing, same thing.
You have to lift up the other foot, right?
Yeah, if you lift up the out of foot and the out of that, because you think about it, if you're out of bounds, this is inbounds, that's out of bounds. Inbounds, out of bounds. It's the same sort of thing with this. Yeah, they can be here right when you get to the, you may even want to give them a warning or two, maybe not two, just, hey, watch the 3 seconds and that's all. They should know where they're at. If they have any conscience or concept of the game, they'll know what that means.
So for example, when a guard has the ball at the 5 counts on and put the dribble down, the count resets. Let's say a post is in the key, gets the ball, does a 3 count reset then?
Yeah. So once, and also, of course, once it hits the rim, and the 3 count
Actually,
gets
once
reset.
it's released, it's reset, right?
Yeah. Well, it's deemed a viable shot attempt.
Okay, so the ball gets passed to the low post, someone's in the key. You're counting until when? Until he actually makes a shooting move, or actually releases the shot, or passes it out? Like, when do you stop counting?
That's a good question, really good question, actually.
The ball or until a shot is, or until he has possession, right?
Yeah, because if a player is down here and he's dribbling 1, 2, 3, and he makes his shot, then I'm not going to call a 3-second violation because he made an attempt. But if he's just panicking, whatever, yeah, that's a violation for that. But if he actually makes a good shot attempt, I'd let that one go.
So I've heard if you make a move that you're going to make a shot, or you're going to make a shot attempt, that I've heard that some referees stop counting because it looks like he's going to make a shot or make a shot attempt, and then they just stop counting because it's just going to be a shot attempt.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's a referee's judgment call. Absolutely.
Just to be clear on the timing, player can come into the key, be there 2 seconds, catch a pass, and then have 3 more seconds.
If he's in the key, that's period. He doesn't have to have the ball or anything. The minute he's in the key, you start that count. Just, hey, watch the 3 seconds.
I thought it reset as soon as he got the pass, though. Like in his scenario, you come down for 2 seconds, you get the pass at 2 seconds. Doesn't it reset for 3 seconds?
That I'm not sure of. I don't see why it would, personally, because he's been in the key. The rule is you cannot be in the key for 3 seconds. Is that what I'm understanding? Possession or not? That, personally, I need to research that a little bit more because I'm unsure of that. I've always just thought if the guy's in the key, he's in the key.
Okay. Yeah, we'll look that one up then.
Well, you'll hardly ever face that, but at the same time, it's good to know it.
I was told that a reach technically is not a foul. It's like it's either a push or some kind of hand check of some sort.
Like with the arm bar? Or what are you referring to?
So, yeah, just slow, like a classic reach that we think about when guards coming with the ball.
You won't find it in the actual
Yeah,
rule
it's not
book.
an
It'll
actual
be
foul.
some other foul, like a hand check or a body check or something like that.
But even then, when you report it, it's just that.
Right.
But
you
you
won't
hear me
actually
say
find
on the arm or something, usually what you
Exactly.
Yeah.
You won't actually find the language reach in the rule book, right?
It's true, you won't. In that case, I would just say a push. Or, yeah, I don't know what else you would possibly. A push is usually the one you fall back on the most.
Let's go for, so the gesture, or like the signals to call fouls, whatever you call them, like over the back, or like what would that be if you have to report over
The NBA, they just do this over the back, or loose ball foul, same sort of thing, exactly the same thing, actually, they just word it differently.
They all just call loose ball foul then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just violation, loose ball foul, 23 black 23, however you want to do it. I'm dyslexic, so whatever. Good questions.
And then it's like a hand check. How would you see? Because like you see this, you see holds.
Holding's another good one. I mean, obviously, I almost made a football joke, which would stupid, but like if you can see them like grabbing jerseys, that's obviously what you do there
And then what's the hand motion? The signify.
for a hold. Stuff like that. You don't want to do like that. It'd be like, oh, wrong sport, idiot.
Well, it's funny because I was watching basketball the other day and someone did this to call a hold.
I've seen
It's
them
like
do that
backwards.
too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You mentioned armbar. Where do you call a foul?
Give them a warning first.
So no armbar at
No
all.
arm bars at all.
Wait, even in the post?
They can do a flat hand, but they cannot hold the hand on the player. They can touch them, alternate hands, but the minute they have their hand on there and they're holding
In
them,
the post or anywhere?
anywhere.
Anywhere.
Yeah, the minute they can't have a flat arm or like a straight arm. They don't want to anyway, 'cause it's just bad defense. But if they have one hand on there and they're just keeping a safe distance, that's fine. But the minute they hold down there for 1-2 seconds, that's a foul.
So any hold for 2 seconds.
Yeah, or if they arm bar them, like if they're trying to push them out, that's also you warn them first. Say, hey, watch the arm bar, and then you can call a foul on that. That's just another push.
Okay, now switch it with the offensive player. When would you call an offensive foul because they're banging too hard? Do you always wait for the person to flop? Or if they're coming in too hard, trying to back their player down, would you ever call a foul?
I have before. It's pissed off the offensive team, which again is just the referee's judgment call.
Back to that.
If I see it's just pretty excessive on the offensive player, and especially if the defender is literally just standing there because he has a right to be in this place. He has every right to defend that. And if he has his hands straight up or even just by his side and he does one of those, I'll likely call an offensive foul. Because the offensive player does have to respect his defensive position to a degree.
How is it legal for anyone to back down anyone else? How is it legal then for any offensive player to back down a defensive player?
If the defender's still moving his feet,
The defender's willingly giving up position.
yeah,
Willingly giving up position or moving his feet.
yeah. But if he holds his feet and he holds that again, you can call it blocking because the offensive player has favoritism in that position. Unfortunately, tie goes to the runner, same sort of theory. Questions?
I was going to say something else. I can't remember. It was, I don't know if it's in high school, but college and NBA, you jump straight up. As a defender, is that the same in high school? You can still jump
Yeah.
straight up when they come in?
As long as they are literally straight up, and that's a really hard call to make because you're not always going to have that angle, obviously. So if you're down here and the play happens either over here or even right in front of you, and even if his arms are a little bit forward, unfortunately that is a foul, even though he jumps straight up. If his arms are over, it's done. It's a foul.
So most likely, it's going to be a foul.
Yeah.
It's really hard to jump straight up.
Yeah, and that's anytime I have a defensive player complain to me about that, I say, your arms are over. That's all I got to say. And again, if he knows anything about the game, he'll know that that's wrong. He'll still complain, but he'll...
All right, when a player receives the pass, but sometimes bobbles it and it goes on the ground and then they regather it,
Yeah,
is it just a judgment call on when to call that double dribble? Fall back?
absolutely. Like if he... Yeah, absolutely. If he just mishandles
Also
it,
another one that's not technically in the rule book, that'd just be a travel.
yeah.
Oh, didn't know double dribble was actually a dribble.
Because again, if he has a good sense of the game, has played it at all, he should know that, oh crap, I just used my dribble, pass it back to me, then that's reset the dribbling. But if he mishandles it, like it's very circumstantial, of course, like you already said. I would probably let him go, just because I would want that as an offensive player. But I mean, if it's pretty belligerent, then yeah, I'd call a violation on it.
I have a question then about, back to where we were talking about, where do you call it on the offense? I was in a game a little while ago where a defensive player knew that the offensive player was just dribbling slowly and methodically and not a very good ball handler. The defensive player predicted where the bounce was going to be and went in, but the offensive player pushed him out of the way so he couldn't get to it, essentially. Where is the offense, where do you call an offensive foul in that situation? If the offensive player prevents a defensive player from getting to a ball cleanly that he otherwise could have got to?
That's a very good question. I will defect to the same time when an offensive player is going to make a jumping layup to the rim. He cannot move the defender's arms out of the way. That's an offensive foul. You don't ever hardly see it, but that's what the rules say. In that case, if you see that exact scenario the way you painted it out, I would call an offensive foul. In fact, I may even just let that go entirely.
Okay.
On what grounds, what rule do you say was violated?
If the defensive player predicts it and goes to make a move, but the offensive player uses his body to shield or gain a strategic advantage, knowing that he messed up, then that change of possession is really split second, really sensitive. So you, again, judgment call, but in that case, if the offensive player makes a big push to get the defensive guy out of the way or to at least avoid him from getting the ball, then that becomes an offensive foul at that point. Because right at that instant, if he times that just right, he's the offensive player at that point.
Do you call it a block, a char? What do you call it?
Push.
A push?
Yeah.
Okay.
It could be both, actually. It depends on what you want. Because it would be a blocking foul, just the same, or however you want to do it.
In a moving screen, you just do this, but other way.
Yeah, just offensive foul. Or
Explain a moving screen.
moving screen. Again, a lot of this is based on the strategic advantage. If I'm setting a screen, but then I start doing this, and I'm still setting the screen, like I'm still preventing the defender from getting to my offensive player, clearly that's a moving screen. Sometimes the Golden State Warriors are really good at this. They'll move, then they'll do one more of these and they get out of the way, or any other system. They're just known for their moving screens that never get called. I'm also a biased Spurs fan, so that's just me. But anytime that you, anytime you see that screener, again, trying to gain a strategic advantage or grabbing jersey, something.
Additional steps, the step out toward, the one that I hate that Golden State does all the time is after they come out of the screen and then they do that one, I'm going to get in your way one last time on purpose, that one additional pivot.
Yeah.
I think anytime they pivot out of the screen towards the player to prevent him from going where he wants to go, that's a moving screen.
Yeah. And so I hardly ever see it, and I'll hear coaches scream, "Hey, moving screen." You're not looking for it because it happens so infrequently.
So you have to be engaged with the defender.
Yeah.
So you come up to set a screen, your player still hasn't used it, and he moves, the defender moves, you can still move because you're not engaged yet.
If the defender causes the offensive player to move, like he lowers his shoulder into him, that's a different story. I don't think that's what you're referring to, though.
No, so basically, you got somebody with the ball, I come up to set a screen, their defender's right here, I haven't touched them yet, I haven't engaged with them yet. My player starts to come this way, he starts to move, but he's not using the screen right. I go to move again and set myself again before he gets to.
Oh, so you're basically helping the defender to stop, encouraging your guy to have a more clear path.
Yes. I'm resetting my screen before he's engaged with me. Is that okay?
That's fair, because you haven't initiated contact yet.
As long as you haven't initiated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I saw a weird one. This was actually a Warriors game too.
Imagine that.
Yeah, so player with the ball up at the top, and there was a post player that was just moving through the lane. Player at the top of the key drives. The defender gets blindsided by the moving player, but it wasn't supposed to be a screen. The player was just coming through, didn't even there was no intent to set a screen. The defender collided with him, fell down, and which gave the offensive player an open look.
Oh, wow.
They called a foul on the defensive player for knocking over the Warriors guy, even though, because he wasn't a screener. They called it a defensive foul.
Like a defensive blocking foul?
Yeah.
Wow. That's Derek Fisher crap. I hate that stuff.
But that's probably just judgment, because
Yeah.
the announcers were like, no, if the offensive player is clearly moving, impeded the defensive offensive player from guarding the guy with the ball. Should just call that the other way, even though the guy
Yeah.
who set that fake screen wasn't intending for that.
Yeah, I agree with that. The announcer was right.
Okay.
NBA refs get paid six figures, so we shut the heck up.
Yeah,
All I can think of. Anyone else have anything?
that's all I got.
This is one of the best ones I've ever been a part of. This was really good. You guys have some solid questions. Anything else?
So let's say a player goes up for a layup and someone smacks the backboard while the layup is up. Is that interference of any kind?
Goaltending. Anything that impedes the progress of the ball.
You smack the what?
Backboard.
Rim,
Especially if the defender somehow times it right and hits the backboard while the ball hits the backboard, absolutely, that's interference. I would say any kind of contact with the rim, net, or backboard is interference. So once that ball's up, defender can't do a thing with that.
I heard it was different.
Yeah.
I heard that if you're legitimately trying to block and you hit the backboard, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's not interference. But if you legitimately try to hit the backboard to make it interference, it's not goaltending.
Yeah.
It's just a technical foul.
That makes sense.
So I don't know. That's just, I remember hearing that, like, that's a weird rule. I don't know.
Yeah. If you guys have some LeBron James type athletes that can block a layup like that, that's pretty phenomenal.
I don't think there's anybody crazy that plays college.
Reminds me of one of the worst calls I've ever made. At the time, it seemed like the right call, and I ran this by my dad, so this would be a good thing to run by you guys too. Very tall, athletic player comes into the key on a I think he had an open dunk, and he went up to dunk it, but he lost it in midair, and still dunked the rim. The ball was still in the air above the cylinder. What do you guys call there?
Still above the rim?
Yeah, like the ball never touches the backboard or rim, but he goes to slam it.
The ball's in the air, he hangs on the rim, and then the ball goes through.
Yeah.
That's a vast interference. Seems like it's vast interference.
So that happened once in high school. I wasn't the one dunking. They allowed it, in case you were wondering. They allowed it, but it sounds like offensive basket interference.
Yeah. And I called goaltending because the ball technically was above the cylinder. The offensive player made contact with the cylinder, which by definition is goaltending. Coach lost his mind. I just said, hey, ball was above the cylinder. I understand he was going for the dunk. I based it on technicalities rather than what the situation was calling for. Probably my bad. His team ended up winning by 40, so it doesn't matter. Didn't impact the game at all. So, I mean,
Yeah, there's another one that might be good for us. How do you, actually there's two of them. One of them, how do you handle like elbows off a rebound or what
the minute they swing elbows,
even if it's with their body?
yeah, even as with their body, the new rule was that, I don't know if this is a new rule, that can be, again, judgment call, a technical foul, because you can harm players pretty bad with that, especially if they're at elbow level. I would give a warning first, blow the whistle several times to stop the play entirely, because the minute they start throwing elbows, that is considered a technical foul. You may want to tell the players that if you see it happen. Don't tell them before the game, in case it never happens. But yeah, the minute they start swinging elbows, that's bad news.
And then the other one was a foul on a jump shot, especially like a three-pointer. The offensive player has the rights to go up and land without being impeded, right? And then what if their hand gets touched when they shoot and they're on the follow-through?
I've seen some offensive players exaggerate that and come all the way down like to the 90-degree angle or 45, whatever that one is, and just to try and draw a foul. And again, that's judgment call. I don't give that to the offensive player, but if that defender deliberately jumps into him, absolutely. And this kind of goes back to, again, by a Spurs fan. If you guys remember the last NBA Western Conference Finals, Kawhi Leonard twisted his ankle because that idiot, Zaza, whatever, put his foot underneath Kawhi's landing foot. Oh my gosh. I was about to kill somebody, and not any other player.
Right, so if you see that happen, so what if the player doesn't land on the foot though, but you guess that there was intent? Maybe that's too much of a judgment call.
In that particular case, there should at least been a shooting foul called.
So as long as they come into like a small area where if they can't land cleanly,
Yeah,
you should call foul.
I agree. The problem is that defender can come at that offensive player for any angle. So again, that's judgment call. But any kind of contact, the shoulders, arms, but once the player lands, like he's just another player at that point. So if he hits his arm after if it's a legitimate good release and he hits his hand, Again, judgment call. I don't normally call that because that's the neutral possession right when that ball's released. But if it's pretty hard,
Call it if it's right here, but what if it's right here?
absolutely.
Like, the ball's coming out and he's hitting it and then it flips.
Yeah, I would call that a foul for sure.
So let's talk about that. Is hand part of the ball at all in any way?
It depends on how the shot's being going. Like if it's a layup, absolutely. If a guy's going up with two hands, hands is part of the ball because it's too hard really because it happens so fast for the referees to see what exactly happens. If you clearly see anything on the forearm, that's a foul for sure.
So if a player comes to the lane, has the ball like this, and you see, like,
Yeah.
it can even have a slap sound, but it's on the hand, and let it go.
Even if I heard it, I would probably call that foul.
If you, yeah.
Yeah.
So fast.
Because you don't know where. Like he could have gotten him right here, but as long as he still got him on the hand somewhere, like if you hear it, again, you're better off calling that foul so you don't piss off the other team,
Right.
rather than just going, oh, the hand's part of the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. And then pump fake, when the defender jumps into the player and then the offensive player.
If the offensive player literally makes like a giant step in there, I've seen offensive fouls for that. But it's also, where do you call the drawing a foul? Because that's also legal. So that's a very good question. I would even say 9 times out of 10, that's a shooter's foul. Very rarely would that be an actual offensive foul, unless they take one giant step and try and, yeah. That's again just a judgment call. I would call that a shooter's foul though.